Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Silvia Paleari, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm the Senior Public Affairs Manager at the International Betting Integrity Association. Before kicking off the session, I would like to thank SBC for putting together such an outstanding event. It probably hasn't been easy to transpose into the digital space such a huge event like SBC Barcelona Summit. So really well done, guys. Today's session is going to be on integrity in sports betting. And I'm here with a well-qualified speakers who have more than 10 years experience in the industry and an in-depth knowledge on sports betting integrity. I would like to welcome Niels Folman, CEO of Dancespiel and member of the executive committee of the Global Lottery Monitoring System. Hi, Niels. Welcome.
Hi, Sylvia. Thank you very much.
We also have Oliver Lamb, head sportsbook controller at Camby. Hi, Oliver. Good to see you.
Hi there, Sylvia. Good to be here. Thank you.
Then we have Gilles Maillet, Sports Integrity Director at Las Françaises de Jeux and also member of the executive committee at GLMS. Bienvenue, Gilles.
Hello to all. Sorry, but you can only hear me, not see me. Some technical problem, but I'm with you. Thank you.
That's good that we can hear you. That's the most important thing. And last but not least, we have Faz Kabir, Senior Integrity Manager at Sportradar. It's good to have you here, Faz.
Hi, Sylvia. Good to be here.
Before starting, I would like to remind our audience that you can ask questions throughout the session, and you can do it through the interactive tool below your screen. So feel free to shoot any question you might have. So today's topic, we said, is integrity in sports betting, and it's quite a broad one. But we're going to focus on the impact of COVID-19 and how the industry reacted to it from an integrity perspective. I think the majority of us still remember those days in March when the measures to contain the pandemic started to come into place, and we saw sport being canceled in less than 2 weeks span. And that obviously had a critical impact on the offer of sports bookies. So let me start with Niels. Niels, as CEO of Dancespiel, as many other CEOs, you had to navigate your company throughout unprecedented times, which were characterized with a lot of uncertainties. So I'm curious to know, what was the first thing that you did when sports started to get canceled? And where did sports betting integrity sit in the list of your priorities? Niels.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, obviously, this was a very unusual and uncommon situation to us. We started seeing the leagues closing down and the different sports closing down. And we kind of, in the beginning, had that hope that, well, this might come to an end at some point. But as we could see that all the sports were closing down, we did our best to kind of get together, and we established a committee in a so-called war room that checked in every morning to see what was on the shelves today, what did we need to take care of in terms of integrity. And we followed the leagues being opened and closed. And then at least that was how it was in the Danish press. Not long after we had seen the leagues and the sports closing down, the press started to write about ghost games, and they started to write about leagues that may have been compromised in some way. We had accusations of match fixing in test matches, etc., etc. So it became very clear to us that this was not just a matter of commercial issues. This was definitely a high-ranking matter on how we should see sports integrity. And we very quickly turned into the best and strongest of our partners and stakeholders to make sure that we could actually protect not just our sportsbook from a commercial perspective, but also our integrity as being part of GLMS and being a state-owned operator here in Denmark.
Great, thanks, Niels. That was really interesting. And good to know that indeed integrity is not, I mean, the way the pandemic affected sportsbook, it's not only has to do with commercial aspect, but obviously puts integrity also at the core of the business. Let me turn to Oliver. Oliver, I would like to know from you, how has COVID-19 changed the way you guys at Canby approach integrity and risk management at operational level?
Yeah, sure. I guess in a way, I guess it changed everything and nothing. I mean, we've always been dedicated to integrity, but this was a whole new and different challenge. I mean, obviously, our typical sporting calendar was totally taken away. I mean, over the space of a few short weeks, gradually things were falling away, and we were left with just, low-level table tennis and darts for quite a long time, really. And we'd always offered those sports, but it'd never been the central pillar of our product. And now we were expecting to see significant turnover on these events. So we did a full risk management review before we offered any tournament during this period. I mean, we were looking at the limits we would like to have on every event, the betting markets that would be correct to take, reviewing the participants involved, and if we'd like to take any of them out of our offering, and also looking at the escalation routes we had internally. I mean, obviously, it wasn't just sports were impacted, the business was too, when we were all working remotely and we had to be able to communicate quickly with each other. So only when we had all of those angles satisfied did we approve to offer something. And, things were definitely chosen not to offer. An example would be some of the low-level friendly football matches in Sweden. They were very low level. There was no participant information available or any kind of sanctioning governing body behind it. And we took a call not to offer those events, which hopefully was the right thing to do, really. I mean, there was no real maybe instances of fixing, but it did generate at least negative press. Like Neil said, this became a wider integrity issue. So there were many new angles to consider, that's for sure.
Great, thanks, Oliver. Gilles, does it resonate with you? How has COVID impacted your operations?
Well, the first thing, perhaps in particularity in France, that there is a official list set by the French gambling regulator of what competitions are allowed and markets are allowed for sports betting. So I must say we had almost to install a daily contact with our regulator in order to be able to extend that list, because in fact, at the end of the day, we had almost nothing left in the official list. So we had to discuss almost daily to extend that list of competition in the market that could be offered in the French market. But the regulator has been quite flexible for all operators, hopefully. We had also, it was very important to have daily contact with the GLMS members and monitoring hubs in order to benefit from a network of monitoring hubs and teams, in fact. And we had also a very tighter than ever contact with the team in charge between the team in charge of trading and the team in charge of monitoring fraud and integrity issues. The purpose was really to detect quicker any suspicion and make quicker decisions, which was very important. Every time we had the beginning of a suspicion that could not be proved by a sport argument, we had to make quick decisions on business aspects to limit the financial risk, but also on the sports integrity actions, getting in contact with the French national platform, with the sports bodies, etc. To some extent, I can say that the awareness of risk of match fixing has again increased within our trading teams probably during that period.
Yeah, definitely. I think I totally agree with what you just said about taking timely decisions. Faiz, I would like to know, at Sportradar, what were the main challenges that you guys faced when it came to sports integrity?
Sure. So the impact of COVID-19 has certainly presented some challenges from an integrity standpoint. As sports and events, which were usually on the fringes, suddenly entered the spotlight, our integrity team had to adapt quickly to this situation when the likes of esports and table tennis suddenly became the most popular betting sports back in April. However, we were well equipped to deal with this, as we have a diverse group of analysts with specialists in both esports, table tennis, and other smaller sports. However, it was then up to the rest of our team who weren't so familiar with these sports to build up their knowledge base which was definitely a challenge they met head on, as there wasn't any time to lose with these sports quickly taking over bookmaker schedules. In addition, naturally, there was an enhanced risk with many lower level competitions suddenly generating large betting volumes. And while Sport Radar already have a strong internal control environment to help protect against issues such as ghost games, we decided to implement enhanced measures during the COVID-19 period. One of the first decisions we took was to monitor all sporting events which we provide data for. This was a significant undertaking, but one that we felt was vital to help manage and mitigate integrity risks during the pandemic period. Also, alongside this, we implemented certain requirements for events we covered, such as codes of conduct for participants, as well as educational support with integrity training for events organisers and athletes. We also had to ensure there was a clear line of communication with investigating authorities, and we reported all integrity concerns that our team detected, providing additional layers of due diligence through intelligence support. A good example of this was when we worked with the Darts Regulation Authority to help identify suspicious bettors and their links to vessel Nightman using open source intelligence. This investigation led to the suspension of Nightman, who later admitted his role in the match fixing scheme. And finally, Sylvia, we also have an internal risk management system which has been in place predating the COVID-19 period to ensure that we don't offer data on teams and athletes who are identified as an integrity risk by our monitoring team. I believe taken together, these robust procedures have enabled us to place integrity at the core of our business, and this approach has helped to mitigate integrity risks during this unique period.
Great, thanks, Baz. So it seems that the measure that you had in place were further enhanced due to the uncertain situation that we were all facing. And are these measures that you applied are going to stay?
Yeah, these measures are definitely going to stay. And one of the big takeaways for us from the last 6 months has just been these enhanced measures, which, ensure a kind of a robust approach is hopefully something that everyone can follow on with in the future, but we certainly will be.
Right. So we have seen that slowly, sport has restarted in the past months, but obviously it's not going to look like what it was pre-pandemic time. We have heard that the new European football calendars have been announced last week, but it's likely that matches are going to be played in empty stadiums. Tennis, it seems like the ITF tournaments, the majority of them are still cancelled. So the tennis calendar hasn't fully resumed completely. So depending also how the pandemic will develop in the coming months in the different geographies, obviously in the different parts of the world, sports will likely to be affected as well, and hence also the offer of the sports booking. So as sport is gradually coming back, I'm curious to know from you all, how are you guys adapting to this new normal, and what are the integrity challenges that you think we'll all be facing in the coming months? Niels, I would like to start with you.
Yes, thank you, Sylvia. I think that governance is still very high on the agenda. I think that some of the lessons learned during the COVID pandemic was to have a very careful eye on what we are actually offering. So from my perspective, I think we will carry on. We used to have a strong focus on what you could call the blacklist of events and leagues that we do not want to offer. But I think that we have changed this blacklist into, you could say, a green list, where we actually are looking at this very, very high frequency, much higher than we used to see, do we see any issues in terms of integrity? Do we see any issues in how these leagues are developing? And then take a case-by-case, or at least league-by-league view on how we would like to offer that, not just in pre-play, but also in in-play perspective, so that we make sure that we don't compromise on integrity. And then I think we have had a good dialogue with a lot of our bettors. We can see that from the dialogues we have on social media and also directly to us, is that they actually feel that we take that responsibility. And I would say, just in short, that quantity is no longer just the only KPI that we're looking into, but quality of the matches on the feeds as well is going to be increasingly important when we look at the future offering in our sportsbook.
Right. Oliver, how are you guys adapting to this new normal? Does it resonate with you, what Niels just said?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, definitely, as the first points around the governance and maintaining the learnings that we've acquired over this period is absolutely key. I think everybody gets it now across the whole company, like the importance and the value of integrity. If it wasn't clear before, I think everyone knows now. So yeah, looking forward, obviously we're going to get more of the big sports coming back just this weekend, like you said, Sylvia. But even this top level content can be impacted. We've seen just the other day some Manchester City players have been tested positive. And we can see, like you said, even big teams may have to play youth or reserve players. They may be impacted. And I think that's going to be a particular challenge. I think the initial lockdown, as chaotic as it was early on, it was a global lockdown pretty much. And there were no kind of regional differences. Whereas I think in the future, we're going to see more localized impacts of COVID. I think we'll see maybe only certain countries, regions, individual sports within regions impacted. So it's about maintaining that vigilance and being, following the news, maintaining these news procedures, and just being ready to adapt at any time.
Yeah, this regional aspect, does it mean that you will need to tailor even more your risk assessment for the offer?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not just saying that say you approve a certain soccer tournament and you let it run. You've got to keep on following the news, seeing how it's impacting certain regions, impacting particular sports, and making sure that you've got the information available to you. I mean, as Neil says, it's kind of a daily verification now of the offering, almost, of going through and checking, is this still what we want to offer? Is it still valid? So absolutely, yeah, definitely keeping that vigilance.
Right. Gilles, to you.
Well, perhaps my first message will be that what you call the new normal, what we can call new normal, is clearly different from the normal of yesterday regarding in sports integrity. The key message is that the financial difficulties of sport in general worldwide are now creating large opportunities for organized crime to develop match fixing all over the world. So the sport of today is not the sports are not the sports bodies or clubs or athletes of yesterday. So this is why, by the way, in July, Interpol, the IOC, the United Nations ODC as well have sent commonly a message to all sports integrity stakeholders. Their message was, please increase very quickly prevention actions and cooperate strongly all together for a better monitoring of competitions worldwide. Otherwise, we are going, of course, the sport is in danger, and our sports betting activity will be in danger as well. So at DJ, of course, in this context, we have maintained a high pressure on our teams and especially high pressure to share information at national level, especially with the French national platform against match fixing, and international level as well, again with GNMS members. And regarding prevention, I would finish by saying that we have also contributed in France to launch a secured whistleblowing tool that can be used by all sports actors in France. It's going to be launched in the next days, supported by the French Olympic Committee, the professional sport leagues, the French gambling regulator, etc. So that's also another way to prove that, say, operators can also contribute in different manner to defend sport integrity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gilles. I can only agree with you that the sport of today is not going to be the one that we remember, and it's going to be also different of the sports of tomorrow, depending on how the pandemic will evolve. Pez, how are you guys adapting as Sport Radar to this new reality, and what are the integrity challenges for you in the coming months?
Yeah, interesting. From a bet monitoring and kind of intelligence perspective, with the competitions which were suspended due to COVID-19 returning, the main challenge will be in identifying the teams and the athletes who have been impacted by COVID from a financial standpoint, the extent of this impact and how this affects the integrity risk of their matches, a significant number of global sports teams might not make it through the pandemic. And we believe that match fixers are likely to target these clubs that are financially unstable due to COVID-19. And I think it goes without saying that all teams will have had their revenue streams affected in some capacity, particularly in terms of loss of match day revenue, which will likely continue for the remainder of the year due to social distancing measures. Clubs that rely on ticket sales and other match day revenues are likely to be hardest hit by this. And the risk level associated with these clubs will naturally increase through no fault of their own. And additionally, in areas where match fixing was already occurring pre-COVID, the adverse conditions that made match fixing attractive in these locations in the first place will have almost certainly been worsened by the pandemic. And finally, a challenging aspect when potentially suspicious betting is witnessed will be ensuring that the information on these clubs and these athletes is located and then assessed fairly. You know, COVID-19 has brought many variables and moving pieces which are affecting sport, such as the restructuring of competition formats. And I think Oliver touched on this, but we've seen examples where a positive COVID-19 test has not necessarily led to the suspension of the match, but rather has seen teams forced to field youth team players instead. You know, in this example, betting markets will move in such a manner as to suggest match fixing. But of course, there is a legitimate explanation for that betting in that scenario. So the challenge in differentiating between fair betting speculation and match fixing is one which will be heightened during the coming months without doubt. And it is important that not only Sport Radar, but all bet integrity monitors recognize and adapt to this.
So basically, you're saying that the way sports betting will be monitored is going to change and also adapt depending on how the pandemic will evolve.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure it will change. It's just that all of the relevant information needs to be assessed and assessed fairly. You know, it's very easy to see an anomalous betting pattern and consider it to be suspicious. But with so many more moving parts now with COVID, I just think that all of the information regarding matches of interest need to be assessed fairly and properly so that we can distinguish if, in fact, these matches are indeed fixed or are the result of, you know, an economic situation or a pandemic situation.
Right. I still see no questions coming through from our audience, so I would like to remind you guys that you're watching from home or from your offices that you can also ask questions to our panelists here. Looking back at the past months, one of the things that we probably learned at IDEA is that cooperation became even more key during the pandemic. And also just post-pandemic, because we realized that there were a lot of unknowns. It was a period of a lot of uncertainties, and nobody knew how long the situation was going to last, and also how the level of impact that this was going to have on integrity from the integrity perspective. So we certainly knew that we had to act quickly and we had to act in a coordinated manner. So cooperation became even more key than ever, than even before. And one of the things that we did, for example, is that we started to organize webinars, because exchange with our integrity partners was really much needed. We organized webinars, for example, with sports governing bodies like the TIU or with the regulators like the Malta Gaming Authorities. I would be curious to know from you guys, what is that one key lesson that you've learned from the past months that when dealing with sports betting integrity that will be important for the future of the industry? Niels, would you like to start?
Yes, as I said, and you've been touched upon that as well, I think that we need to work more closely together. I think we have a strong network, and both the networks based on the national platforms, but also internationally, as mentioned by some of the other panelists, is going to have increasing importance, because we have to look at this in the long run. And I'm sure that all the information we can share and all the transparency we can get about protecting integrity is going to be a key factor to us, as that is the only common goal that we share. Is to make sure that integrity is in high standards. Otherwise, we need to, of course, compete on all the other key parameters. But integrity in sports is absolutely the common denominated factor, and we need to protect that.
Absolutely. Oliver? what is that one key lesson that you've learned in the past months, and that it will be so important for the future of the industry?
Yeah, I'll definitely echo Niels's point of view there. I think it's always the key thing is collaboration. I think also the speed of collaboration as well is what's important. And like you mentioned, Sylvia, I mean, it was a difficult time for everybody with everyone working remotely, and we had to keep the awareness up. But if anything, collaboration's actually improved, I would say. And they say that, you know, COVID's been an accelerator for change in many sectors, and I think that applies to ours as well. Faz mentioned earlier on, there were some suspicious darts events earlier in the summer. And we've already seen that's led to sanctions for the two of the players involved. And in the past, that kind of process would have taken months, if not years, to go through. And this has taken, you know, weeks. So I think it's been impressive to see that kind of the speed of things. So definitely collaboration and speed of reactions is key for sure.
Right. Thanks, Oliver. Gilles? Do you agree with Oliver?
I will have a similar message very clearly. In fact, we clearly have to cooperate, and especially the three key families who have to cooperate are the sport organizations, the law enforcement authorities, and the sports betting operators. And they are the three. This is the family that has to cooperate. As said, to exchange information very quickly, to improve, to be quicker in decision making, and also to work together in terms of prevention, awareness raising vis-à-vis the world of sports. Many athletes, many clubs, many sports federations, I've met a lot of them. Very few people are still aware of the issue, and the issue is increasing, as you just said. So cooperation with all the stakeholders will be key in the next month, because it's and that's the way to defend the sport values that we all love, but also to defend the integrity of our activity and the trust of our clients in our business model.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, Gilles, especially when the part that you said about timely exchange. This is something that we have learned too at IBM. Faz, where are the key lessons that you guys at Sportradar learned? And
so I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle here, Sylvia. An important takeaway from these past few months for us has been the success of the enhanced integrity safeguards, as I previously mentioned. You know, the development of the integrity ecosystem through the use of bet monitoring, education, intelligence support, and clear communication channels with the key stakeholders has helped to mitigate the risks in competitions that may, in other circumstances, have been at high risk of facing integrity issues. The pandemic situation will continue to impact the landscape of integrity and match fixing in the year ahead. There will continue to be significant financial hardship for teams, individuals, and leagues, which the match fixers will no doubt prey on. That's why it's imperative that sports are proactive, putting appropriate integrity measures in place to reduce the risk of this happening. And we believe that the procedures we implemented during this period can serve as a blueprint for this approach. Now, at Sportradar, we strongly believe that the key lesson is to understand and manage the risks associated with events in the betting market, as opposed to measures such as prohibition. We have witnessed the failure of prohibition to limit match fixing historically, as the global betting market is simply too decentralized to allow this approach to work. And this still holds true during the pandemic, with certain operators offering certain events and other operators not offering them. You know, the aim should be to adopt a more pragmatic approach, and by implementing an effective integrity framework around sporting events, match fixing can be prevented, deterred, or in the unfortunate cases where it still occurs, it can be detected and it can be investigated. However, finally, to wrap up, to ensure that this approach works, we need all data providers and all stakeholders to be aligned. And unfortunately, not everyone operating in the sports betting arena invests in these rigorous integrity measures. It's therefore very important for sports leagues to expect these integrity standards from their partners to help mitigate the risks facing their events.
Absolutely. Thanks, Faz. Oliver, you mentioned earlier that it was that you had to choose whether to offer or not certain bets, especially related to the lower level leagues. this is a question for open to everyone. How did you strike that balance between keeping customers engaged and complying with risk management? Oliver, would you like to go?
Yeah, I guess if I raised it, then I can at least put some initial thoughts into it. Then it is a delicate balance, and especially when there is so little content available to bet on. Of course, your natural reaction is to try to put as much as you possibly can out there and bet on as much as you can. But I think it just comes down to a judgment call, and I think a lot of that comes from really guidance from almost outside of the integrity organization in the business, but from senior management. You know, how high does your company value integrity? Are you willing to sacrifice certain parts of even revenues to do the right thing, really? So it can be a difficult judgment call, but I think as long as you're a business overall and senior management are giving that kind of guidance, I think that the operational staff, know which decisions to take on the day. But in the case of these kind of Swedish friendly games, for us, it was just this, it's kind of how low can you go? Like I said, we didn't actually doubt the integrity of these athletes whatsoever. It's just the fact of, this is such low level. Would we offer this in a normal environment? No. So why should it be particularly different now, really? And it's about often protecting some of these players. They're not earning any money. They're very low level. They don't really want the focus of the international betting markets jumping all over their events. So I think it's tricky, but I think if you have the right guidance, you can make the right decisions.
Right. Niels, any thoughts on this?
No, I agree on that, and we definitely follow that, and we take the good expertise and advice from our fellow members of GLMS from all the countries that we cover, about 32 countries. And I think that's very, very important, so that we don't, get into a situation where the players actually feel obliged either not to play at their best or to play at their best, or feel scared or threatened to go into these matches. But at the same time, I think we have also experienced that some of our bettors actually, they are very interested in the leagues and the sports where they feel at home, and they're not so comfortable in the leagues that they don't know anything about. So even though we saw an increase in esports, it doesn't mean that all the bettors we have on football will go into esports, just running out of the risk that they don't feel that they're in control of their bets in terms of the chances to win, so that will be put into, you could say, more or less like a lottery ticket, where they could actually contribute to maybe taking that league within the esports to something that they didn't want to. So I would say I follow Oliver on that one, that we would always look at how low can you go and what league should be actually pushed out, because we also have to protect our business and we also have to protect the bettors in the long-term interest of sports betting.
Right. Gilles?
Sorry, Sylvia, I didn't hear very well your question, in fact.
Sure. So Oliver mentioned earlier the fact that they decided not to offer certain bets on lower level leagues. So the question is, how do you strike that balance between keeping customer engaged during a time where there is little to no sport, and complying with risk management?
Well, the first thing that, in France, I must say that first we have to work with the list, the white list that is provided by the French national regulator. But we can, and that list definitely puts aside a high number of, let's say, risky competitions. For example, in tennis, we never offer, we are not allowed to offer anyway bets on challengers or futures levels, and that's a good example. And on competitions where we can offer, we take care, we choose carefully also the markets, the type of bets we want to offer, because we want to secure our customers. So this is the next step. But anyway, the list, the French, let's say, official list, is also a question of discussion with our French regulator. But till now, I would say everybody agreed on the fact that we have to be very careful with some let's say, levels of competitions also in some countries, I must say.
Correct. Right. Well, we're heading towards the end of this session, and I actually have a little challenge for you guys. The challenge is to provide your key takeaway from this session in 30 seconds. It could be a keyword, it can be a sentence. So it's up to you. So Niels, maybe we can start with you. What's your key takeaway in 30 seconds?
Well, the need for information, the need for frequent follow-ups, the need for international network cooperation and collaboration, increased transparency, and then, of course, to make sure that our offering is taken on a better safe than sorry side. And I'm pretty sure that we, through that, can go through these pandemic crises.
Thanks, Niels. Oliver, you have 30 seconds. What's your key takeaway from today's panel?
Yeah, I think it can be that, that working with integrity is not just about making individual decisions. This is about how your business and even the industry itself is perceived externally. So I think it's about doing the right thing, really, so that, it's obviously on the bottom line, you're not offering fixed events and not losing money to them, but also your business is doing the right thing and you're kind of sending out the right messages about sports overall during this challenging period.
Right. Thanks, Oliver. Gilles, same challenge. 30 seconds, key takeaway. Go.
Yeah, okay. My message would be to sports betting operators. There are 3 words: cooperate, cooperate, cooperate. And for cooperate with sport bodies, cooperate with your national and international authorities. And last but not least, as cooperation is important, I would say, why not joining a sports betting monitoring association, whether this is GLMS or IBRA for you, Celia. It is important it costs very little to join these associations, but the payback is very clear.
Right. Thanks, Jill. Well, that was 30 seconds sharp. Congratulations. Buzz, same for you.
Sure.
30 seconds.
Sure. I like that.
30 seconds sharp.
Yeah, I like that plug from Gilles there about joining a bet monitoring system. It's good. Anyway, okay, 30 seconds. I suppose as a provider of bet monitoring, we've seen the importance of being able to adapt and be flexible to changing circumstances by having built a diverse team of integrity experts. We weren't caught off guard by the rapid emergence of minor sports and competitions to the forefront of the betting market, but also, whilst COVID-19 has been unprecedented, the sports betting landscape will continue to evolve in an organic way, even once this pandemic is behind us. So learning the lessons from the past 6 months and the coming 6 months will help to ensure that integrity measures in sport are as robust as they deserve to be.
Great. Thanks, Faz. Well, you went a little bit over time, but we will forgive you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Well, I guess these all sum up pretty well today's discussion. I would like to thank our distinguished guests for their useful insights, and I hope this will leave us with much to ponder as the pandemic continues to play a part in all our lives. Well, as time is over, I would like to thank also our audience who was with us today. I hope that you keep safe, and thanks for joining us. And as well, thanks SBC for organizing this. Hope you keep safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sheila. Thanks for hosting.
My pleasure.